Welcome to episode 198 of the Ski Podcast. Thanks for joining us, listener. Today is a very special episode as I am joined today by a record-breaking skier, Dave the Rocket Ryding. Hi, Dave. How are you today?
Hello. I'm all right. A little bit fatigued still from the night race. I normally like an early night, so a night race and adrenaline, etc. I'm not asleep before probably 2 a.m. So, yeah, getting
right. Okay, and we'll come to that race in Schladming, which happened on Wednesday of this week, not very long ago just now. Just remind me where you are right now, Dave.
I'm actually in the Utstal Valley, very close to Obergurgl, where my sponsor. So, yeah, just having a couple of days off, and then I'll do a bit of training here before heading over to Chamonix.
Okay, and is that your kind of base for the season? Do you have a single base that you retreat to between races?
No, we don't actually have a base because when we're always on the road, and especially in the winter with having 13 races on the calendar, it's very much race to race and training venue to training venue around the races. So yeah, we don't have a base as such, just the back of the van and my suitcase.
Yeah, well, nice to be able to retreat to a place that you do know well. I mean, we've had you on the podcast before. It was a long time ago, back in lockdown. I'm not sure many of us have fond memories of that time, although I know for you it was quite nice to be actually back at home for a sustained period. And then in Saas-Fee, we shared a tea-bar in the summer when you were training. But a lot has happened in those years since 2020. And lots of things I'd like to cover just now. But you mentioned you're getting your training in prior to your next race. That will be in Chamonix next weekend, is that right?
Yeah, correct, yeah.
And you said you're training there. I mean, I'm going to be out in Chamonix. We tried to see if we could arrange this interview so that I met you in Chamonix. But you mentioned that you're not allowed to train there, is that right? Or you can't train there in advance?
Yeah, I mean, in any World Cup, you're not allowed to be on the race hill like 7 days before the race. So it's never a case of training on the race hill. But we thought there might be a training opportunity in and around Chamonix on a different piste. However, that's not the case anymore. I don't know if it's the weather forecast or something. So just come back to the usual training stomping ground in Utstal and doing it here instead. We were in Schladming anyway, so it's not that far.
Okay. A question I always like to ask my guests when they're on is, when did you ski last? I'm guessing you skied maybe early this morning. Would that be right?
No, I've actually got two days off penciled in. Other than a gym session or whatever, but off skis for 2 days since the Schladming Night Race. So it was Wednesday evening was my last.
So literally it was in Schladming, and we might as well talk about that now because the conditions were far from ideal for that race.
No, it was rather moist to say the least in the evening, and I even pulled out the umbrella for the second run inspection because it was torrential rain. So
I mean, I guess is that it's got to be worse than it snowing, or is it the same kind of challenge? Because visibility is going to be such an issue.
Yeah, it's a similar challenge visibility wise that it really changes the piste. I mean, luckily they had a really good surface before the race, so the piste held up. Probably one of the best rain races I've ever skied on a piste. The problem on the night race with the rain, it's not just the rain on the goggles, but because the floodlights are beaming down on the piste, and the floodlights kind of reflect even more in all the raindrops. Certain times on the piste, it was really hard to see because of the floodlights.
And your start order becomes more important in those sort of conditions?
Yeah, it does. Obviously, the second run goes in reverse order anyway, so you're kind of always shooting back to the front if you can. But yeah, it's massively important to make sure that the start number's good.
Well, we'll come back to this season. I wondered if I could just take you back a little bit. I think we're not going to go through like the whole of your story. I think lots of people listening to this podcast will know that you started and you learned to ski at Pendle Dry Slope in the UK. But that journey has taken you to become a World Cup winner. And 2022, a couple of years ago at Kitzbuhel, you won your first slalom race. And I think I'm right in saying, are you the oldest winner of a World Cup slalom?
Yeah, exactly. 35 and the oldest ever winner, oldest first time winner of any race or any World Cup discipline, and the oldest slalom winner.
Yeah, I mean, that is an amazing achievement. I wondered if I could kind of take you back because, that's a long time. I mean, we're saying, I think it's 11 years after you made your debut, because I was looking through the FIS website earlier. Alta Badia, was that your first World Cup race?
It was actually, yeah.
2011. So that's a long time between
I straddled the third gate
those
on that
two.
one.
Right, you remember it well. I think with Kitzbuhel itself, the race where you did win, the race was brought forward a day earlier. Did that make any difference to you? Do you think that helped you relative to your competitors?
No, I mean, one day here or there is no difference, and it was the same for everyone because we'd just raced the weekend before in Wengen. So everyone had the same build-up. It was exactly the same for everyone. So it wasn't a case of that sort of transition to Saturday making it better for me. In the end, I guess it did because I pulled out my best skiing on the Saturday. I did good job. It wasn't Sunday, but no, I think it was just a case of same for everyone.
You've performed well at Kitzbuhel prior, and evidently it's one of your favourite places to race. Could you put it down to anything? Were there just lots of factors that came together on that particular day that made the difference?
I think, the fact is that I'm very good in Kitzbuhel now. I've learned it over the years. I know how to deal with all the terrain. I know how to, it's always icy. Ice suits me. I'm good on the ice. I'm good when it's difficult. So Kitzbuhel, it suits me. And then on the day, I was able to ski free and didn't make any mistakes in a very difficult course set when everyone else was struggling, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. You say, oh, you like it when it's difficult. I think most people listening to this podcast would probably consider any of the courses difficult. And you said, you like Kitzbuhel and you know it well. I was speaking to Chemi Alcott in another podcast a while ago, and she came out and she met you in the summer. I think there was a gondola named after you in Kitzbuhel. She was interviewing you around that. Is that right?
Yeah, so every winner in Kitzbuhel of the downhill and slalom gets the gondola. So yeah, it was a gondola presentation for that.
But so she was interviewing you there, and you were kind of going through the course kind of by foot from the top in the summer. And you obviously, know it really well. That's what really you feel makes a difference for you.
Yeah, we actually walked down the whole downhill as well, and that's way too scary for me to give a go. But yeah, I've got a lot of experience, and while the younger guys on the World Cup circuit, they probably are in more of their peak physical condition than I am. I mean, I'm still very fit and strong as good as I've ever been, but I'm not as young anymore. I certainly have the experience, and Kitzbuhel's a piste where you definitely need that. And I'm able to draw on my experience of how to use all the terrain, where to let the skis go, where you have to hold back, and it works for me.
Okay, well, fantastic. Evidently it does. Can I ask you a couple of questions about the racing and maybe racing in general, really? I mean, you're known for your second run charge. That's often, where you're gaining time on your competitors. Is that just a natural part of your strategy, how you go about skiing? Would you ever kind of favor the first run for trying to get an advantage?
I mean, I've been leading 2 World Cups after the first run, and one in Levy, and I crashed on the second run, and then the first podium in Kitzbuhel, I was winning the first run. So I have been in very good positions after first runs, but I definitely free up a little bit when I'm not in the sort of top 8 or whatever it is, and there's sort of less on the line, and I seem to ski more free when there's a bit less pressure. So I'd love to be able to perform first and second run. It is very tough mentally as well, but I enjoy having a real go at the second runs, and that's probably where my second run charges come from. Yeah.
I was listening to Drake commentating on one of your runs recently, and he was just a whole time referring to how aggressive you are on that second run. I mean, here's another question that I think maybe some listeners would be interested in. I certainly. You have that gap between the first run and the second run. What do you do in that period of time there? How do you kind of recover or focus yourself? How much time do you have, and what do you do in it?
Yeah, so normally on a normal race day, the first run will be around 10 o'clock and the second run is always 3 hours later, so 1 o'clock. And because I start in the first 15, I'm normally at the bottom by about 20 past 10. Obviously, there's a second run inspection. They change the courses and we inspect an hour before the second run. So if the second run's at 1, the inspection will be 12 till 12:30. And then you go to the start whenever you think, depending what your start is on the second run. But yeah, very much a case of, if there's any media, you've got to do some media interviews. get back to the team hospitality and do a little bit of a recovery, whether it's a spin on the bike or just a walk around, and try and get some food on board, because it only seems like we're racing from 10 till 1 or 10 till 2 if you're doing well after the first run. But the race day is so long. It's actually normally a 7-hour day, and you consume so many calories because of inspections, stress, the warm up before the first run, and all this stuff. It gets kind of forgotten about. So it's really important to keep the calories coming in when you can, and with time before to digest them before the second run. So yeah, get some lunch down you, about 11 if you can. Not too much, but something simple like plain pasta or something like that. Yeah.
I mean, you're obviously burning through, as you say, a lot of calories, and I can imagine a lot of that is, adrenaline driven, because the actual, descent itself, it's evidently very intense, but it's not for a particularly long period of time.
Well, yeah, but that's where everyone is slightly wrong in the sort of theory around the slalom day. I started wearing a heart rate monitor in World Cup about 2015, and I turn it on when I put my boots on, and I turn it off when I took my boots off, just to see what a day was about. Yes, as soon as you put your boots on up to the top and you're doing some warm-up courses, and then obviously the race is a minute long, but I can't replicate the heart rate that I get in a race at home because of the intensity, the stress, and how hard it is. And so in between the runs, my heart rate isn't coming down massively. So for a 7-hour ski day, I can average around 117, even 119 beats per minute for 7 hours, with obviously maximum peaks in and around that. So the data we've got on a race day it's a savage day, and for the body. Yeah, you think of a cyclist going out for 7 hours and averaging 120, you're tired. So we've got to be ready for a long day while sustaining these massively intense bouts of performance in it and focus.
Right. I mean, that is interesting. I think you may know that I do a bunch of running and certainly monitoring my heart rate different times. What does it peak at then? Presumably it peaks in the race itself during the descent. What would your heart rate peak at?
Yeah, for me, now I've got a bit older, it's not quite the same as when I first started. When I in about 2015, I got like 191, 192. This year, I've not actually checked my peak too much, but it'll be around 187 to 190. Like Schladming being closer to Kitzbuhel, I'm not quite as recovered. So my heart rate isn't actually as high as Kitzbuhel, for instance. So yeah, there's a lot goes into it, and a lot that people probably just totally don't even think about. Carb drinks, energy gels, all these things are massively on my mind in a race day to keep the carbs coming in, to keep fueled up.
Yeah, I mean, that is so interesting. And I think you're right. It is counterintuitive. It's not what people would necessarily consider. And it's also interesting to hear you mention that maximum heart rate of, 180, 100, high 180s, 190. There's a triathlon magazine called 220. And the reason it's called 220 is because typically you do 220 minus your age to work out your maximum heart rate. And yours should be something like, low 180s, but you're hitting high 180s, 190. Very, very general guideline to it, but so interesting to hear how it works like that. And I guess that informs a lot of your training as well. I do know, because we've discussed it before, I think I've maybe read about it, that you and the team do like a park run when you're training in the UK, and you can knock out a very fast park run time.
Yeah, I think it's more me and my coach than the whole team, but me and my coach certainly get involved in the park runs. And yeah, the reason we started doing it is because it's a 5K. It's not okay. It's a bit quicker than 20 minutes now, but it's a great sort of intense bout of exercise. It's really hard to replicate, and I love doing it because it's kind of in a competitive environment, and it's always at the end of my week. So it's like, right, well, put out whatever you've got left. And it's a great event just in general, as so many people turn up of all running levels, and I just love it. But I managed to go sub 17 for a PB. That was 2 summers ago. But yeah, regularly 17:03 this summer was my best. So
that is very, very impressive. I love parkrun. I've got a few local to me, and I do it on a regular basis. But I've never managed to go below 18, even when I was closer to your age. But
yeah.
You're right. the community side of things from parkrun is fantastic. But you're also right that it is a competitive sort of thing. And, to be going around 17 and sub 17 is absolutely fantastic. I mean, that is a really impressive time. I don't know if you've ever looked, they give you age grading scores to kind of give you a rough idea of how that is.
These I'm always looking at these stats.
Yeah, and do you know what that comes out at?
It's kind of high 70s at my age, but my problem is I do too much weight training in the week. So, and I'm a bit too heavy to be a runner, but yeah, I somehow managed to stumble my way around a 5K, but I think 5K for me feels like a marathon.
Let me just take you back to Kitzbuhel then. So you won that World Cup. You referred to your age there, the oldest winner of a World Cup slalom. I'm pretty sure I'm right in saying that on the second run, you got to the bottom, you had the fastest time, but then you had to wait for another 5 competitors who were faster than you in the first run to come down. What's that like when you're at the bottom there, watching each one come down?
Yeah, it's kind of, you've done your bit and it's now out of your control. So nerve-wracking kind of, but also like, yeah, you just got to sit and wait and tick them off. And then obviously when there was only one more person to come and I was still leading, it took me back to 2017 when I was in the start and Hirscher was leading at the bottom, and they spent about 2 minutes flicking between me and Marcel of his expression at the bottom and my expression at the top. And I much preferred being at the bottom leading than I did like standing at the top still with it all to play for. So my job was done, and then I could sit back and kind of wait and see.
Maybe if you can't relax, because it must be a strange kind of thing, because in some respects, I mean, I know all of your competitors, you've been skiing against them, for a long time, you train with them sometimes as well. But presumably you can't help thinking, I hope they don't do well here.
Well, yeah, it's every man for himself on a race day, right? So I'm certainly not rooting for them to beat me.
It must have been brilliant, that feeling at the bottom. I mean, I know there's some fantastic video, and it was clearly meant a huge amount to you. I know you've had a number of podiums in your career, but to win a race, you were very emotional after that.
Yeah, I mean, the whole team, it's been a hell of a long journey, and I've had the same coaching staff for pretty much all of it, and I know how much it means to them as well. So actually the first thing I was thinking was, I'm glad I've done it for all the help I've received over the years, all the sponsors that have helped me, even the sponsors like when I first decided that I was going to give this skiing a real go after I'd finished college, and those people that helped me in the really early days, I was just so grateful that I could show that their support, my coach's sacrifice was worth it. I will never stay the most successful British skier. I'll guarantee you that. And the next generation are ridiculously good, but I will always be the first one to get the win. And so I'm really proud of what I've been able to sort of push the bar to in British skiing, and then I can leave it to the next generation to take it further.
And that is actually a really good segue to the next section. And I can tell you that, on behalf of, let's say, British skiers, obviously huge congratulations. So you mentioned that next generation there. And, the last few years, you've seen amazing consistency, or to me, it seems that you've seen amazing consistency in your skiing. And you've had your 7th podium this year at Madonna di Campiglio. Is that it?
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. 7th podium this year at Madonna di Campiglio. And I think as well, that was another record because I read that you're the oldest ever skier to podium as well.
No, someone actually wrote that, but they got it wrong. I was actually 12 days too young. 12 days younger than Giuliano Razzoli. So I'm the second oldest now. I think I'm the second, the fourth, and the 6th oldest on a podium already. But yeah, so I'm the second. But I had to wait until after Christmas until I was old enough to be the oldest. So I was still too young in Madonna, but it's obviously, right up there with the oldest podium. 12 days too young still, I was.
Well, there's still races to go for sure, and you're still competing, and at a very high level. I mean, there've been 5 podiums in the last 4 winters after 2 in your career prior to that. But you mentioned the team there. And what I found really interesting, Kitzbuhel this year, I think you came 5th, but it was the teamwork that has struck a lot of people in the UK industry. There were 3 British skiers in the top 20 for the first time, I believe. And, have Billy Major skiing with you and Laurie. They both pulled off personal bests at Kitzbuhel as well. They've both got really good overall ratings. What's it like working together as a team like that? I get the impression that you're constantly helping to develop each other.
Yeah, it's exactly that. It's the development that we're all on the hill together every single day, pushing each other, and it's that competitive spirit and competitive drive that we all have to improve, and that's one of the most important things in training is to have a good level every single day, to know where the marker is of good skiing, and we certainly have that as a group. I mean, I've seen their progression the last 3 years, and they're absolutely amazing skiers and have a great future ahead. But so it didn't massively surprise me when we did manage to do 3 in the top 20. It's really hard to do. And only Austria had more in the top 20 than us with 4. So I think that puts into perspective how hard it is to get 3 races into the top 20. They're right there with me in training every single day, if not better. So the 3 of us, we really push each other well. And it's good to see that they're now also making that step into the top 20 of the World Cups.
That is great, and it is really interesting because I was looking at some of the data, and I think I'm right in saying they're both 27. So I look back through your history, and when you were 27, there've been a lot of changes. You were kind of around 50th or something like that, and they're kind of higher than that now. So there's obviously that you mentioned before about the experience and how important that is. Do you think that we're going to see them pull that experience in, and do you think they can progress at the same way as well as you have over the next decade?
Yeah, I see absolutely no reason why not. And like my journey was done really late because I didn't ski much when I was younger. So yeah, I see still massive improvement in what they can do, and as they gain more experience on the World Cup and figure out all the piece, they will absolutely go on to bigger and better things. So yeah, I'll enjoy watching it when I certainly put my feet up whenever that is. But for now, yeah, it's, I see great potential and a great future for the 3 of us.
Well, it's very exciting for sure. And, we're talking about, that process. It takes a long time to learn. You mentioned that in Alta Badia, 2011, your World Cup debut, I think you said you DNF'd or something like that. And you had, quite a few challenges like that in the early years, or not qualifying to get to the second run. But these guys are now consistently getting onto that second run. So, it's definitely exciting how things are looking moving forward.
Yeah, massively. And it's really good that we don't kind of have a gap between generations. Billy's ranked 31 on the World Cup points for like how the start list works. So very close to getting in the top 30. And it's really important that we always have someone in the top 30 to be on TV for exposure and to build the team for the future. So it's going to be a great future, I'm sure, for British skiing. And I think this is just the start.
Well, if you want to get an insight, listener, to how, Dave's talking about the team and how they all work together, Laurie has got a fantastic YouTube channel which he runs called Behind the Brits. And, some of those are fantastic. And I think they give you an insight as to how you train together as a team. For example, I was watching something the other day where you're all kind of spotting each other for squats. And that looked like big weights that you were lifting there. What were they?
On that day, it wouldn't have been anything crazy on that day because we were sort of in between races. So I think we had about 130 kilo on the bar, but we didn't have the weight stands. They managed to get stuck in a van that wasn't actually there. So yeah, we were kind of picking the bar up, adding the weights on the back, shifting around, and yeah, just getting it done really. It's just do it in the hotel's garage. We just get things done as Brits because we don't have the same funding as these bigger teams who have whatever. But yeah, we still do the same workload or whatever, and we're willing to do it.
It's interesting because I was going to kind of lead on to some of those discussions about, let's just start with the logistics of the kit, because you have a huge amount of kit that you need to move around. I don't know, how many, between the 3 of you, how many pairs of skis, and don't know if you, by the sounds of it, you're moving your own weights with you as well.
Just if you think about a training as well, we have, as a team, we probably have over 100 slalom gates for training. We probably have all the servicemen's benches, boxes. We have over 50 pairs of skis easily between us, probably more 60, 70. And the coaches have to put their heads together to figure out where everything's going and where we need them and everything like that. So luckily now we all do the same program, so which makes it easier. But yeah, there's a hell of a lot.
Yeah, you mean when you say you all do the same program, meaning you're all on the World Cup circuit?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and the younger guys have the points now that they don't need to do the Europa Cup. So
And so how literally do you move it then? Because you talk about 100 gates, 60, 70 pairs of skis. Can you get all of that in a minibus, or do you have like
Yeah,
I don't know.
luckily now actually we had a van donated to us by a very nice lady from Saas-Fee who we stay with in Saas-Fee called Inga, and yeah, we use one of the vans as like a moving container with gates and all that sort of stuff in, and then the skis obviously go in a van on their own because they're obviously the most important bit of equipment. But yeah, we have 3 vans that we travel around in, and yeah, one of them is very much a moving container. Like all these Austrians and everyone, they can go home between each race and just take what they need, but we're out here. It's funny because I've got a bag that I never take home, and I've got some T-shirts in it that are like over 15 years old. But I'm just, well, for one, I'm northern, so I'm a tight ass. But yeah, I just stay in that bag, and I just keep wearing them. So all my stuff stays in Europe.
We've been talking about the team. Obviously, the focus has been, on Billy and Laurie and skiing with you as well. But who else do you have in your team there, the support staff who are going around with you?
Yeah, so we have 3 that are always with us. Like, it's a small team. Tristan Glasse-Davies, my coach, or the main coach of the team. He's been my coach since 2011, so a long time. Then Geyer is mine and Billy's serviceman, but way more than that. He's massage assistant, etc. Then we've got Alain Baxter. He's with us, and he's been with us now for 3 years. And right. In the winter, we're luckily joined by a guy called Brad Morgan, who I actually skied with when I was young at Pendle, and he was in racing as well. So all British, all pretty young, except Alan. Alan made his 50th birthday at Christmas, so I'm not sure we can class Alan as young anymore. But all Brits and all very passionate, and the coaching staff are willing to going above and beyond expectation, because they kind of have to, because we don't have you see the Swiss team, French, and that they'll have at least probably 8 to 10 members of staff with their team to prepare piste, to prepare skis. It's probably more than that, but yeah. So we're a small team, but luckily the coaching staff are willing to work. They do the work of 8 to 10 people because they have to.
Well, I mean, that's fantastic. Interesting you mentioned Alan there. I interviewed Leslie McKenna a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago or something like that, who was out with him in Salt Lake City on that occasion when he won his medal. And listener, if you'd like to know more about that, I'll put a link into the show notes. But if you're not familiar, listener, Alain Baxter, extremely successful British slalom skier who, won a medal at the Olympics. Full story. Too long for this podcast, but we'll have it in there. And so that's your team. And you referred to before, people funding you in the early years. I think in your career, racing for Team GB, funding has gone through different levels. But the situation at the moment, it costs a lot of money to employ the staff, to get you around, from resort to resort. Are you getting that adequate funding now to make it work for all 3 of you?
Yeah, just about. It's always on the back of our mind. And I don't know, even in December, we kind of knew that we only had funding until the end of February. I'm kind of hopeful that we've got some more now to get us through March when the last World Cups are. But yeah, it's always on the mind. And the real hard bit was last year. And it definitely had an effect on my season, just the stresses of UK sport leaving Alpine. And we're always staring down the barrel of what do we have for next season. And it's been a constant thing that I've had to deal with my whole career. But kind of, as long as I know what I've got, I can perform and have it in my head and keep my mind calm. If my mind's calm, then that's fine. But anyone out there that knows of funding that could help would be massively appreciated.
Well, listener, if that's struck a chord, then you can definitely get in contact. It's interesting. I think, do you feel the funding is often related in parallel to the chances of getting a medal at major games? So continually being able to pick up podiums, do you feel like you have a responsibility there somehow, aside from your own personal success?
For sure, yeah. And I hate the whole stigma around Olympics and major champs, because like for me, the World Cups, as Kitzbuhel's as big as the Olympics for me. It always has been, and the biggest race on the World Cup is always the one that I want to do the best in for every season. But the problem I had with the last Olympics was I won in Kitzbuhel 3 weeks before it. So obviously I had the form to do it at the Olympics. But, well, the sort of short story is I'd been trying so long to win a race. At 35, winning, the emotional come down that I had after that race was kind of, it was, well, I didn't expect it, but it was huge because, 35 years of trying to do something, and then I achieve it on the biggest stage of alpine skiing and win Kitzbuhel. I never really recovered for the rest of the season mentally because I was just drained. But I had to go to China, of all places, in quarantine for 2 weeks, where we weren't allowed to go out of the athlete village or see anybody else. It was tough, and I got 13th, and then we lost all the funding. So it sucked. And it's not, skiing isn't a sport like cycling. You can't predict the things, the results as easily, and that's what UK sport don't like. They like pedaling around a track with a specific watts, with a skin suit that's going to make you faster than the other nations, and hey presto, you got a medal. But skiing's a bit different to that, and we definitely get treated harder than other sports. But it's something we've got to deal with, and we crack on.
Well, we do crack on, and as you mentioned, it does look positive for the future. We're seeing Billy and Laurie progressing really well. I do have a couple of questions for you about them. Laurie, I notice at the moment, doesn't have a moustache, but controversially, he did have a massive one before. What's your view on that?
My view is he looks ridiculous, but he did that for Movember, didn't he? So it's more the mullet that he's rocking. You don't see it on TV. He's rocking a mullet at the moment. He calls it's something along the lines of race season is mullet season, and he gets this horrible mullet going, but it's his character, and that's why Laurie is Laurie, and we love Laurie for being Laurie. Some things he does isn't my taste, and certainly his haircut or mustache, but no, he loves it. So I'm not going to tell him to change it.
His personality comes across in his videos for sure. Okay, here's my question about Billy then. I've seen him showing off with his football skills in some of the videos. Does he fancy himself? Do you think he could become a Liverpool player, an alternative career?
Bill, I don't know really. We like to play donkey or red ass. If you drop the ball, you get the ball kicked at your backside. So no, he's quite skillful with the football. So he probably would have a decent shot at it.
Okay, and I got another question then. We mentioned that next generation, but the next generation isn't just the guys who are skiing in World Cup already. In the last week, we've just seen some amazing results from Zak Carrick-Smith. He's been out at the World Youth Olympic Games in South Korea, and he's picked up 2 gold medals and a silver medal. He got the gold in the combined and also in the slalom, and silver in the GS. I think he's 16 years old. I must admit, until this week, I wasn't aware of his parents, but I hadn't been aware of him. Do you know Zak?
I do know. I know all 3 Carrick-Smith brothers. There's 3 of them. He's got a twin brother, Freddie, and an older brother of 2 years older, Luca. So I actually trained with Luca about 2.5 weeks ago. We were in the same place, and he hopped in with us. So,
but those results are pretty outstanding. I mean, evidently that is the first ever gold medal by a skier in an Olympic competition, and so therefore it's never happened before, breaking records like you have along the way. What advice maybe would you offer him to try and get that transition to then subsequently move on to the senior circuit?
I don't think I need to give much advice, to be honest. I think it's just more understanding of the journey ahead, understanding that it's not all plain sailing and you've got to take the rough with the smooth. But as long as you keep the right mindset, the right focus, and the right lifestyle, then, I mean, he compared to me at 16, you'd laugh at my results when I was 16, but that was kind of my own unique journey. But first of all, he's got a twin brother who is, if you look at the results, they almost mirror each other. So if I don't know if we had another spot or if he wasn't allowed to go or we were only allowed to take one, I don't know. But his brother could have also had, only one of them can win gold in each race unless they tied, but they could have had another 3 medals. And that's what is so good with British skiing now. You've got people podium in the World Cup, but you've also got Billy and Laurie about to make the step into the top 30 for the next 7 to 10 years of the World Cup. But then you've also got the generation below winning Youth Olympic Games. So I can't bang the drum enough to UK sport that we have a pipeline now of people coming through proven. Like, this isn't just like one random person coming through. There's a proven pipeline of 3 on the World Cup now, and the next generation after Billy and Laurie, who are 21 years younger than me, which is ridiculous. Yeah, we need to get the funding coming in, and the future of British skiing is going to be incredible. And also people like in the year 2000 to 2007 of British skiers in general, not just guys but girls also. There's a whole group of them that are coming through, and the future is really, really good. But yeah, we need the support, and we need to find a way to make the next generation a pathway to do it.
I mean, that sounds like a really positive point to finish off. You mentioned, Freddie, I read an interview where Zak said that, sometimes he beats his brother, sometimes he beats him. It can be the other way around. So with them and with the many other skiers coming through, at least they know that they'll be able to, follow in footsteps that you've put down and everything that you've shown that British skiers have the ability to do despite the various challenges. And if they keep being able to get podiums, then that will help funding for the rest of the season and the future as well. So, I'd like to thank you so much for your time today, Dave. I've really enjoyed chatting with you, and wish you and the team the best of luck for the rest of the season, particularly at Chamonix. I will be there. I've got a media pass. I'll be in the crowd somewhere. I won't be in the mix zone, but watch out for me waving like a Union Jack as you come down. So
you'll have to get one of the Rocket Union Jacks. Yeah. Or the listeners, if you go to ski racing supplies or whatever, or search I've got a few merch items out there, so you could all pop a Dave Ryding hat on or something there. skiracing.co.uk. It's that's where they are. Or search Dave Ryding merchandise. I'm sure you'll find it. So it's always nice to see those hats around.
Well, I will do that from the Tribunes or wherever I manage to get to. But otherwise, thanks so much for your time today, Dave. Enjoy your days off, and we'll all be supporting you for the rest of the season.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Take care.
That was such a pleasure talking with Dave. What he's achieved as a British skier, racing against the odds with next to no funding, is quite incredible. His career is far from over yet, but with 7 podiums to his name and that record-breaking World Cup win, he has put down a fantastic foundation for next generations of alpine skiers who are already putting down great results. Now, feedback. I enjoy all feedback about the show. I'd like to know what you think, especially about our features, so please contact me on social at Ski Podcast or by email theskipodcast@gmail.com. If you like the podcast, there are 3 things you can do to help. Review us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. You can subscribe so you never miss an episode. Or you can book your ski hire with Intersport Rent and get a guaranteed discount using the code SKIPODCAST, or just take the link in the show notes. There are over 200 episodes of the Ski Podcast to catch up with, and quite unbelievably, all of them were listened to in the last week. I suspect that that's one listener out there who's listened through all of the back catalogue. If that's you, that is impressive work. It makes sense, as there is so much to listen to in our archives. Just go to theskipodcast.com, search around the tags and categories, and you're bound to find something of interest to you. Now, you can follow me at Skipedia and the podcast at the Ski Podcast. But for now, I'd like to thank Intersport for sponsoring the show and thank my very special guest today, Dave the Rocket Ryding. Finally, listener, thank you for joining us, and until next time, goodbye.